You can grow old with serenity or with bitterness, and the choice, according to the Native American elders, begins with a single habit. Margaret was 74 years old when she first felt something was wrong. She had spent her entire life being the kind of woman people called a blessing. She raised 3 children mostly on her own after her husband passed. She worked 2 jobs through her 50s just to make sure her grandchildren had what they needed. She was the first person at the church bake sale, the last to leave the hospital waiting room, the one who always picked up the phone no matter what time it was. For decades, Margaret gave. She gave her time, her energy, her savings, her patience. She gave until she had nothing left to give, and then she found a way to give a little more. And then, at 74, a man came into her life. He was charming, he was warm, he said all the right things at exactly the right moments. He made her feel for the first time in years like she mattered, not as a grandmother, not as a caretaker, not as someone useful, but simply as a person worthy of love. Within 6 months, her savings account was nearly empty. 2 of her closest friends had stopped calling. Her daughter was barely speaking to her, and Margaret sat alone one evening in her kitchen, looking at a photograph of her late husband, and she whispered something that broke her own heart. "I spent my whole life learning to love people. How did I not see this coming?" That question, Margaret, that question is exactly what we are going to answer today, because the elders knew. They always knew. Long before the modern world had words for manipulation, for exploitation, for emotional abuse, the elders of the old traditions had already mapped these patterns in their observations of human nature. They watched, they listened, they remembered, and they taught those who were willing to sit quietly and hear. Today I want to share with you 7 signs that the elders said must never be ignored, especially after the age of 60, when your time is more precious than gold, your peace is more valuable than comfort, and your heart, though weathered, is still capable of being broken. We will talk about boundaries, about money, about pressure, about isolation, about worry, about false affection, and about that quiet voice inside you that has never once lied to you, even when you refuse to listen. These 7 signs could save you from one of the deepest regrets of your later years. Before we continue, take a moment to check that you are already subscribed to this channel. And write in the comments, what state or country are you watching from? I always love knowing how far these stories and teachings travel. There is a reason the elders were called elders. It was not simply their age. It was not the lines on their faces or the grey in their hair. It was something harder to name, a quality of attention that most of us spend our whole lives trying to develop and never quite reach. The elders of the old traditions believed that everything in the natural world was trying to teach you something. A river does not argue with the rocks in its path. A wolf does not chase prey it cannot catch. A tree does not try to grow in the wrong direction simply because someone told it to. Nature, they said, is always honest, and if you watch it closely enough, it will teach you how to read people just as clearly as it teaches you how to read weather. They spent their lives watching human behavior the same way they watched the seasons, patiently, without judgment, but with complete attention. And what they discovered, generation after generation, was that people who wish to take advantage of the old, the lonely, or the kind almost always follow the same patterns, almost always leave the same tracks. The elders called these patterns the quiet warnings. Not dramatic, not obvious, but always present. Always there for those who had learned to look. The world has changed enormously since those teachings were first spoken around fires under open skies. But human nature has not changed at all. The hunger that drives one person to take from another is the same hunger it has always been. And the signs that warn you of that hunger are the same signs the elders described centuries ago. You are not too old to learn them. In fact, after 60, you may be more ready to truly understand them than ever before. First sign, they show little respect for your boundaries. The elders used to say, watch how a person treats the word no, not the first no. Anyone can accept the first no gracefully, with a smile, with understanding. Watch what happens after the second no. Watch what happens after the third. Because it is in those moments that a person's true relationship with your limits becomes visible. After 60, most people have finally, after a lifetime of practice, learned where their boundaries are. You know what drains you. You know what hurts you. You know what you need to protect your peace. You did not learn these things easily. You learned them through years of saying yes when you wanted to say no, through sleepless nights, through relationships that cost you more than they gave. And then someone new enters your life, maybe a romantic interest, maybe a new friend at the senior center, maybe a distant relative who suddenly reappears after years of silence, and almost immediately they begin pushing. They show up uninvited. They call at hours you have said are difficult for you. They make small requests that grow into large ones. And when you say no, they do not simply accept it. They question it. They soften their request and try again. They make you feel that your boundary is unreasonable, that you are being difficult, that a truly caring person would simply say yes. The elders knew this pattern well. They said, a person who cannot honor your limits does not want you. They want what they can take from you, because someone who truly cares about another person finds joy in that person's comfort, not frustration with their boundaries. After 60, your limits are not negotiable. They are not obstacles to love. They are the very shape of who you are, and anyone who cannot see that is not someone who should be allowed deeper into your life. Second sign, they ask too many questions about your finances. The elders had a saying that translated roughly as this: a person who counts your horses before asking your name is not interested in your company. It is one of the most uncomfortable signs to acknowledge, because when someone new enters your life and shows what feels like genuine interest, it is natural to share. You talk about your children, your home, your past, your plans, and somewhere in those early conversations the questions begin to shift. How did you manage after your husband passed? Do you own your home or rent? Are your children nearby to help you? Did you receive a good pension from your years of work? Are you comfortable financially? Each question on its own might seem like simple curiosity, but the elders taught their people to pay attention not just to individual moments, but to patterns. And a pattern of financial questions early in a relationship, before trust has been truly built, before you truly know this person, is a pattern that deserves serious attention. This is especially true after 60, because the reality is painful, but important to say clearly. Older adults are the most targeted population for financial exploitation in this country, not because they are foolish, not because they are naive, but because they are often trusting, often lonely, and often hold savings that took a lifetime to build. The person asking those questions may not have harmful intentions, but the elders would say, you do not need to assume the worst to simply be wise. You do not need to accuse anyone of anything. You simply need to notice the pattern. And if someone seems more curious about what you have than about who you are, that noticing alone may be the most important thing you do. Third sign, they push you toward quick decisions. There was an elder who used to tell young people something that sounds simple but carries enormous weight. He would say, never make a permanent decision in a temporary emotion, and never let anyone make one for you. Pressure is a tool, and people who use it often disguise it as urgency, as opportunity, as love, as loyalty. This is how it usually sounds. I need to know right now. If you don't decide today, it will be too late. I thought you trusted me. After everything I've done, I just need you to say yes. You're overthinking this, just follow your heart. Dorothy was 69 when her new companion suggested they combine their finances to purchase a small vacation property together. He was warm about it, enthusiastic, full of plans, but he wanted the decision made within the week. There was, he said, another buyer interested. There was no time to think carefully, to talk to her children, to consult anyone with financial knowledge. She felt the pressure like a weight on her chest, and she also felt something else, a small, quiet discomfort that she could not name. She waited anyway. She took 2 weeks instead of 1. By then the man had disappeared entirely. The elders knew that wisdom cannot be rushed. They watched the seasons take their full time. They watched rivers carve canyons not in a day but in centuries. And they applied that same patience to every important decision. They said, a good thing will still be good tomorrow, and a person who will not allow you the time to think clearly is a person who is afraid of what your clear thinking will reveal. After 60, you have earned the right to take all the time you need, every single time. They try to separate you from family and friends. An old teaching from the elders compared the human being to a single tree on an open plain. A tree standing alone, no matter how strong, is vulnerable to every wind. But a tree rooted inside a forest, connected to other trees through soil and root and shared water, can weather almost any storm. Isolation, the elders said, is never accidental. When someone works to separate you from the people who have known you and loved you longest, it is because the presence of those people makes the work of manipulation harder. It rarely happens all at once. It begins with small comments. Your daughter doesn't seem to understand you the way I do. I've noticed your friends don't really appreciate you. I just feel like when you're with them, you come home different, less happy. Maybe it would be better if it was just the two of us for a while." And slowly, almost without realizing it, you find yourself calling your daughter less, making excuses to miss Sunday dinners, letting friendships that sustained you for decades grow quiet. James was 76, a retired schoolteacher with 4 grandchildren and a circle of friends he had known since his working years. Within 8 months of a new relationship, he had missed his granddaughter's graduation, stopped attending his weekly card game, and was spending most of his time in the company of one person who kept reminding him that the others had never truly understood him. His oldest friend finally drove to his house unannounced one afternoon and sat with him on the porch. He didn't argue, he just said, "You seem smaller than you used to be." That sentence woke James up. The elders would say this: "Your connections to people who loved you before this person arrived are not competition for your affection. They are the roots that hold you in the earth. Anyone who asks you to pull those roots is not trying to help you grow. They are trying to leave you without ground to stand on." 5th sign: they generate more worry than peace. Before we move to the next lesson, I want to share something with you. Many of the reflections I have been preserving on aging, inner peace, silence, and the forgotten lessons of older traditions have been brought together in a book called The Last Teachings. It is a simple conversation, written the same way an elder would speak to someone sitting quietly beside them. If you would like to go deeper into these teachings, you will find the link in the first comment below. Now back to the 5th sign. The elders taught that after a certain age, your nervous system has already carried enough weight. It has already processed enough worry, enough fear, enough loss, and so the presence of peace in your life is not a luxury, it is a necessity. It is medicine. They believed that you could measure the health of any relationship by asking one honest question: do I feel more settled or more unsettled since this person entered my life? Not temporarily unsettled. All meaningful relationships bring some discomfort as they grow, but chronically unsettled, consistently worried, regularly losing sleep over this person's moods, their needs, their problems, their expectations of you. Ruth was 71 and had survived 30 years of a difficult marriage before her husband passed. She had finally, in her late 60s, found something that felt like peace. And then a charming man entered her life who was, she admitted, exciting. But he was also consistently in crisis. There was always a problem, always a need, always something that required her energy, her focus, her money, or her emotional resources. She told her sister one evening, "I feel like I'm always bracing for the next thing." The elders would recognize that feeling immediately. They called it living inside someone else's storm. And they were very clear. After a lifetime of endurance, you have not earned the right to finally rest, only to give that rest away to someone who has never learned to manage their own weather. A relationship worth having, they said, should feel like arriving home, not like standing on uncertain ground. 6th sign: they show excessive interest too soon. The elders used to describe a certain kind of bird that lands on your shoulder, singing the most beautiful song you have ever heard. So beautiful that you stop paying attention to where you are walking. So beautiful that you forget for a moment to watch the ground beneath your feet. Excessive affection, too early, is a song like that. After 60, especially if you have lived through loss, the death of a spouse, the end of a long marriage, years of loneliness, there is nothing in the world more healing than feeling genuinely seen and wanted. And there are people who know that, people who have learned to use that hunger against you. It moves very fast. Within weeks, they are talking about the future. Within a month, they are using words like forever and meant to be. And I have never felt this way about anyone. They need to see you every day. They become unhappy when you have other plans. They tell you that what the two of you have is rare, special, different from anything they have known. And part of you, the part that has been alone and aching for connection, wants so badly to believe them. The elders were not cynical about love. They believed deeply in the power of genuine human connection. But they also knew that real love moves at the pace of trust. And trust can only be built through time. Anyone who wants to skip that process is either afraid of what time will reveal about them, or they are in a hurry to secure something from you before you have the chance to think clearly. Real warmth, the elders said, grows slowly, like a good fire, built carefully, tended patiently, and capable of lasting through the night. A fire that burns too large, too fast, too hot in the beginning, almost always burns out just as quickly, and sometimes it burns down everything around it in the process. Seventh sign, they make you ignore your own intuition. This is the one that matters most, and it is the one the elders spoke about with the most gravity. They believed, deeply, completely, without reservation, that every human being carries within them a form of intelligence that no amount of education can give you, and no amount of confusion can fully take away. They called it by different names in different traditions, but the meaning was always the same. It is the part of you that knows before you have the words to explain why you know. It is the quiet discomfort that appears when something is wrong, the slight tightening in your chest, the sleep that does not come easily, the moment in a conversation when something is said and your body reacts before your mind has processed the words, the persistent, wordless sense that something about this situation is not what it appears to be. After 60, that intelligence is not weaker, it is sharper. It has been trained by decades of experience, by every moment you paid attention to people and to outcomes, by every time you trusted your instincts and were right, and by every time you overruled them and later wished you had listened. And yet, the elders observed this pattern so consistently that they made it one of their most important teachings. There are certain people who seem to have an almost instinctive ability to make you doubt that voice. They question your judgment gently. They reframe your concerns as misunderstandings. They appeal to your desire to be fair, to not be the kind of person who judges too quickly. They make you feel that listening to your instincts is the same thing as being unreasonable or unkind. You're overthinking it. You've been hurt before, so you're projecting. I've never given you a reason to feel that way. I thought you trusted me. And slowly, with each of these small corrections, they teach you to dismiss the most reliable source of wisdom you have. The elders had one absolute rule about this. If a relationship consistently makes you doubt your own perception of reality, that is not love. That is something else entirely. And no matter how warm the words are, no matter how convincing the explanations, no matter how much you want it to be otherwise, what you feel in your body does not lie. Your intuition, after all these years, has earned its authority. Honor it. If these words have touched your heart, perhaps you would like to know about the last teachings, a collection of the most important lessons on solitude, relationships, inner peace, and what truly matters as the years pass. And when you find the link in the first comment, you will also receive a free teaching called The Secrets of the First Hour, about the quiet, sacred habits that many elders believed were the foundation of a life lived with dignity and intention. 7 signs. 7 quiet warnings that the elders mapped long before any of us were born. A person who treats your boundaries as obstacles does not want your companionship. They want your compliance. A person who focuses on your finances before they truly know your heart is not looking for a friend. They are looking for an opportunity. A person who refuses to give you time to think clearly is afraid of what your clear thinking will cost them. A person who works to separate you from those who love you is not building a home with you. They are removing your shelter. A relationship that consistently fills you with worry rather than peace is not a relationship that belongs in the last chapters of your life. A person whose affection moves far faster than trust can be built is performing something, not feeling it. And any person in any kind of relationship who makes you doubt your own inner knowing is asking you to abandon the most honest companion you have ever had. These 7 signs are not reasons to close your heart. They are reasons to protect it wisely. They are reasons to remain open and trusting and hopeful, while also remaining the clear-eyed, experienced, deeply wise person that decades of living have made you. There is a tree in the old forests that the elders used to point to when they wanted to teach something about the later years of a human life. It is the oldest tree in the forest. Its trunk is wide and deeply grooved, marked by every storm it has survived, every drought, every season of abundance and every season of loss. Its roots do not spread shallow and wide, hoping to catch whatever water passes nearby. They go down, deep, deliberate, unhurried, into the oldest and most reliable layers of the earth. That tree does not bend eagerly toward every bird that lands on its branches. It does not grow faster, simply because something is pulling at it. It does not give its shade to every creature that demands it, and it does not apologize for any of this. It simply stands, patient, grounded, fully itself, and the birds that are worthy of it, the ones that bring life rather than taking it, the ones that build their nests carefully and stay, those birds the tree welcomes completely, with all the warmth and shelter and quiet strength that only something ancient can offer. You are that tree. You have always been that tree. You simply need to remember it. The elders used to end their teachings not with answers, but with questions, because they believed that the right question, held gently in the heart for long enough, will eventually find its own answer. So I want to leave you today with this. If the person who entered your life most recently were to stay exactly as they are, saying what they say, doing what they do, asking what they ask, giving what they give, would the next 10 years of your life feel more like arriving somewhere you have always belonged? Or would they feel like slowly losing something you have spent a lifetime becoming? You already know the answer. You have always known. The only question that remains is whether you are finally ready to trust the person inside you who has been carrying that knowledge all along. Walk gently, see clearly, and never, not once, be ashamed of how much you know.